No discussion of links would be complete without covering things you shouldn't do and things that simply don't work well anymore. So in this lesson, I'm going to go over a few things that could get you in trouble or, more likely, will just waste your time and money. When I covered the idea of low-hanging fruit in an earlier lesson, I talked about reciprocal linking, a you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours kind of thing. Very popular and effective in years past, but it just doesn't work well anymore and is actually on Google's list of link schemes. Will this get you in trouble, some kind of penalty? Probably not. Google allowed these things to go on for years, and they're well aware that many webmasters and site owners don't know they're a problem. What is more likely to happen if you use reciprocal linking, though, is that it simply doesn't work. The links will be given little, if any, value by the search engines. This page, by the way, which you can find here, is Google's list of linking tricks that it hates, things that it can often identify too. Another thing that the search engines don't like is the buying and selling of links for the purpose of manipulating search results. Even major newspapers used to sell text link placements to people trying to boost their ranks in the search engines. In fact, this is something I'm going to look at in more detail in a later lesson. Then there's article marketing or article syndication, the idea of writing an article, putting links in it, and posting it to the various article libraries. This too was very popular and effective, but the search engines don't like it much as they feel it's pretty spammy and often quite low-quality content. In fact, Google gives an example of the sort of thing they don't like, as you can see here. So article syndication is not bad per se, it's the garbage articles that are heavily keyworded that they object to. Low-quality content stuffed with keywords. So content distribution can be a very effective method for building links if done right, but low-quality article syndication isn't doing it right. Another thing that's got a lot of SEO press in recent years is press releases. Again, an example of a technique that used to work extremely well, but now not so well, although there may be some lift perhaps. The idea is that you send out press releases containing links. I'll admit in years past, I used to distribute releases very widely through a couple of dozen free and low-cost press release sites, and I saw some great results. Google doesn't like this because at the end of the day they're a trick. It's the site owner distributing the press release, so anyone can do that. In fact, these days many press release services, perhaps most, automatically add no-follow tags to links within the releases. I'm not convinced there's no value in press releases, though. In fact, at least one study showed that even after Google was saying there's no value in press release links, there clearly was, that Google was indexing the links and giving value for them. Still, I do think it's likely that press release links don't carry much value these days, and certainly nowhere near as much as they used to. How about blog guest posts? This is another subject that's been widely discussed in the SEO field and often misrepresented, so I'm planning to post a lesson on this very subject at some point. The problem with guest posts is that a business grew up around the concept. Anyone could pay a network to distribute articles, with keyworded links of course, to bloggers trying to make some extra money. There was even a little cottage industry in Indonesia with bloggers creating networks of blogs on which they would sell article placements. Let's just say for now that for obvious reasons the search engines don't like these kind of link games, and so many guest blog links just don't work well anymore. That doesn't mean, however, that writing guest blogs never works. Done right it can, but the search engines object to the low-quality, widely distributed kind. You may also run into systems that create huge numbers of links to your site very quickly, perhaps thousands. Systems such as Xrumor, a piece of software that registers accounts en masse on forums and then automatically submits forum posts containing links. Quite understandably, the search engines hate these things, and I'd recommend you stay away. Another thing that doesn't work well these days is links in low-quality directories, the sorts of directories that services submit to en masse. Again, this is a subject I've covered earlier in the course in this section on registering with directories. These kind of links did work well years ago, but you can't expect them to do much for you now, and they should generally be avoided. So, what is the common characteristic of all these link schemes? As I discussed in an earlier lesson, it's all about fake links versus real links. In all these cases, links are getting placed because the site owner wants and needs links, not because independent site owners care one iota about the site being linked to. Paid links get placed because money is changing hands. Anyone can post a press release to a press release service. There are blog guest post networks that distribute posts, usually for payment. In reciprocal linking, nobody cares about the sites they're linking to. They're just linking in order to get a link back, and so on. The search engines want to see the real thing, links to your site because a site owner has a real reason beyond money to link to it. Now, Google describes these things as link schemes that can negatively impact a site's ranking in the search results. But that's to some degree part of the psychological warfare I've mentioned elsewhere in this course, in which Google in effect threatens people in the hopes that they'll be scared away from doing certain things. But I have to ask myself, would Google really penalize someone who knows nothing about SEO, who quite innocently puts a link in a press release or in a guest post on a blog? It's doubtful. And how does Google know that you placed the links pointing to your site rather than a competitor trying to get you kicked out of the search index? Far more likely is that if a search engine finds a link in a press release or what it decides is a low-value guest blog, it simply ignores the link or devalues the link. Actual penalties are far less likely. I'm not saying they never happen, but they only happen in really egregious cases in which Google has some level of certainty that in fact the links are part of a concerted effort to manipulate search results.